All right. So today is the 6th of June, and we're going to have our CBAP training class. Folks, remind me what chapter we're on since I was on vacation last week. Are we working on chapter 6 or chapter 7?
7.
Perfect. Okay. Let me share my screen. I have only one screen today, so I'm going to need to move some things around so I can see everybody. Okay, chapter 7 is requirements analysis and design definition. Um, I am probably older than most of y'all, and so the word rad, like radical, was a big deal whenever I was a teenager. So I really like chapter 7 because it's my rad chapter. So let's begin a new exam. First of all, did y'all get to work on chapter 7 last week?
Yes, with Cosi.
Okay, you worked with Kasi on chapter 7. Okay. So, Gabrielle, we're on chapter 7. Chapter 7, let me
Yes.
give you a brief introduction just as you weren't here last
Okay.
week. Chapter 7 is going to be 30% of your test score, test questions. So it's really important that you get chapter 7 down really well. Chapter 7 is not easy. Let me see if I can grab my, it's right here. So chapter 7, let's look at this. This screen thing is hard, isn't it? Okay, so in chapter 7, we're going to specify model requirements. And what that really means is you're going to write them down. Either they're going to be in a spreadsheet, they're going to be in a process flow, they're going to be someplace where they can be reviewed. This is whenever you have left your stakeholder interview and you come out and you say, you know what, I've got all these notes, but now I need to make it in a clean form so that I can have people review it and I can talk to other BAs about it, and I can talk to my PM about it. That's what specified model is all about. So let me make this just a little bit bigger. In specified model, we're going to model the requirements, which means write them down. We're going to analyze them. We're going to represent requirements and attributes, which means what other information do I need about this? If it's a process flow, you might need to say this comes from this particular system, or these are the fields we receive, whatever details you might need to make it clear for people. And then you're going to implement the appropriate levels of abstraction. This is phrased oddly. Abstraction in the Babok is how granular you you get in. Whenever you're talking to a VP, the level of abstraction you're at is a very high level. You're just talking, we're going to connect this system to this system. When you're talking to the business, they're kind of in the middle. They want to know, well, what information are you getting from the source system? And then you can give them the field names and the years that you're bringing in, things like that. But whenever you get down to the developer or the QA person, you're going to be getting very, very specific. They want to know what's the field name, not just the business field name, but they want to know the field name in the table. So it's a much finer level of abstraction. So at whenever you're working with specified model requirements, figuring out what level of abstraction you need, how granular, what level of detail you have is one of your tasks. Who is it you're going to be talking to? What information do you need so you can answer questions across the board? So that's specified model requirements. In verify requirements is a little tricky for some people. Verify requirements is literally to be sure that they are the quality that you need to have. Do I have the right level of quality? And to verify and validate, these two people get confused periodically. So what I tell people is verify ends with a Y and quality ends with a Y. So just remember, verify is about quality. And for this one, It does not have to be the next one after you specify and model. Either one of these can be the next one, or you can do them together. It doesn't matter. Either one, you're going to take in the input is going to be your requirements that have been specified and modeled. So you can't do either one of these until this one is done. For verify requirements, this list is a little bit longer. In Whenever you're checking the quality of a requirement, you're looking at these things. You're looking at the characteristics of requirements and designs quality. And this list right here is very important. You need to understand what each one of these words mean. Atomic means that it can stand alone. It doesn't need anything else to explain it. Complete means it's got all the information it needs. Consistent means it's I'm going to let you look these up in the Babok to be sure. But consistent means that it's in the same format, in this correct format as everything else. Concise means it doesn't have anything extra in it. It's not doesn't have any superfluous information in it. Feasible is that particular requirement able to be done? Unambiguous is kind of a different way of saying that it's complete and concise, but it's just, you know which role is going to use it, you know which field is going to use it. You just make it very, very specific. Testable can be answered with yes or no. Either it is true or it is not true whenever they get to the result. Prioritized, of course, you work with your product owner or your sponsor to get it prioritized. And then is it understandable by anybody who would read it? I've seen BAs have the problem that they would make it so fancy or so complicated that the business couldn't understand what it meant because they were writing it for specifically the developers. And then you're going to go through your verification activities and then which is the quality, who do I need to check with? And then checklist another thing that you're going to need to look up in the Babok. It's kind of like to be sure we get all these things done. And then you're going to be sure that you've gotten validate requirements down. Validate is be sure that the requirements align to your business requirements, and then they support the delivery of needed value. These definitions, these two right here, are really something that the watermark system stresses. They want to be sure that you get these done. And so they will say, whenever you're doing this, which task is it? So you need to go back and forth. Do I have any questions so far?
Mm.
Okay, I'll keep going. Then you
No,
define oh, yes, go ahead,
no, I was saying I don't
Gabriella.
have any question.
Oh, okay, okay. Welcome, welcome. I'm on one screen, so I can't see who's here. Okay, define requirements architecture. Just be sure that the requirements work together to collectively support each other to achieve your objectives so that you don't have any gaps. Uh, in this, you're going to go through your requirements, viewpoints, and views. And this in the Babok was challenging for me whenever I first read it. Requirements, viewpoints, and views. I kept reading it as though it were a task. It's not a task, it's a concept. So if you have the watermark test book, reading it in that is very, very helpful. If you don't have it, whenever I get home on Monday, I can send you some information about it if it's confusing to you. Then you've got your template architectures. How are you going to structure your templates for your requirements? Are you going to include the source of the requirement, the date you receive the requirement, if there's what the status of the requirement is? These are things I highly recommend that you record with each of your requirements. Then you're going to relate and verify requirement relationships. And then these, you need to look at this up in the Babok again. Defined, necessary, correct, unambiguous, and consistent. And you'll notice that you got unambiguous up here and unambiguous down here. You've got to learn the differences in those two. And then the information architecture is just another layer on that. Then defining design options. This is defining your solution approach. What do these requirements push you toward? What do you think that the solution to these requirements would be? And I'm gonna not read through all these for y'all because I know you can do this. But for this, you have to define your solution approaches. Are you going to create the solution? Are you going to purchase the solution? Or are you going to purchase something and then customize it, which is the both, or customize some portion of it? Are you going to identify improvement opportunities? For instance, increase effectiveness, improve access to information, and identify additional capabilities. Are you going to allocate your requirements, which you will, unless you have a very, very small project? Allocating requirements is literally, we're going to do this. Let's say we're building a playground. In this playground, we're going to do this section first. We're not going to do the rest of them. We're going to just do this section. And so these requirements for this section are going to be allocated to this portion of the project. And then phase two is going to be this other section over here. And so you allocate the requirements for that section. You may have some requirements that cover all the different sections. If you can do phase one without those, that's fine, but you have to figure out which requirements go with which phase. And then you're going to describe your design options, which is literally figuring out what the design is going to look like. And then you go into analyze potential value and recommend solution. In Watermark, as we go through the test questions, we're going to talk a lot about uh, it's going to say things like the BA has recommended a solution, and they've evaluated all these possible solutions, and they've come up with this is the one we think is best, and this is the reason why. And this goes back to our test cases that we talked about in chapter 6. In chapter 6, we talked about you have all these different opportunities, and so you're going to create your business case. I'm sorry, I meant business case earlier. You're going to create your business case, and you're going to say this is going to cost this much money. It's going to give us a return on investment of this. Here we are talking about the same thing again. We have all the different solutions we've done evaluations for, and we bring forth this is the one we think that you should go with. In that, we are going to talk about what the benefits are, what the costs are, we're going to determine the value, and this is potential value, which is a big deal in the BABOK. And then we're going to assess the design options and recommend the solution. We're going to talk about available resources. Do we have the developer that has the skills on board, or do we need to train somebody or bring somebody on? Do we have the workforce that is capable of understanding the technology, or do we need to create training, or is that going to be a burden for us? We'll talk about constraints on the solution and dependencies between requirements. So that's chapter 7, and we're going to do some test questions today. Does anyone have any questions right now? Let's turn it around. Is everybody good with this so far?
Yeah.
Thank you, dear. Ooh, he brought me hot chocolate. Babe, I need a coaster. Please. I'm on somebody else's table. I can't just put it down. My desk has a mat across everything, so I can put it down. Thank you, dear. Okay. Okay, let's get started with test questions. So once again, if you have any challenges with any of these test questions, I encourage you to mark in the BABOK with a Post-it note, this is something I need to study. That way you know exactly what you need to study instead of having the whole thing as an ocean to be studied. Question 1, which of the following best describes some of the characteristics or requirements and design quality? So some of the characteristics, remember we talked about this a little bit earlier, well, I talked about it. So I've got atomic on 3 of them. I think you would remember that we have atomic. This one doesn't have atomic, but it doesn't mean that it's eliminated. because we're talking about some of the characteristics. This is not an exhaustive list. So let's start with this one. This one has a different word. It's called measurable. Is measurable one of our characteristics?
No, the measurable is more related with the SMART goals.
Okay. So we can eliminate this one. Okay, so this one, atomic, concise, feasible, unambiguous. Here's the difference. So it's estimated, prioritized, or approved. Which one do we think is the correct answer?
The prioritized.
I've got one vote for B.
Another one for B.
Okay, two votes for B. Let's check this answer. And you are correct. Good job. Atomic, concise, feasible, unambiguous, and prioritized. Requirements may be modeled using a variety of formats. Which of the following correctly lists the types of requirements formats? So we're talking about requirements formats in modeling. So this is our specified model task. Are the requirements formats and its types of requirements formats? Is it text matrices diagrams, logical, physical, formal, informal, throwaway, evolutionary, functional, or text matrices graphical? Let's eliminate one.
Eliminate logical physical.
Very good. And what do we think is the correct answer?
I don't know if it is A for Alabama or D for Denmark. Diagrams
Okay,
or
so
graphical?
right. So you're pretty sure it's text matrices. Okay.
Yes. I'll
Yes.
go for diagrams.
Okay. I've got one vote for A.
I'm also torn between the A and D. Let me see. I think the language is the issue. I think I'll do more with diagram. So I'll go with the same option as him.
Okay. I've got two votes for A from Amarachi and Jose. Gabriella, what do you think?
Seems A.
Okay, let's go with A. And you are all correct. Very good. Text matrices and diagrams are types of requirements formats. So text is words, matrices is spreadsheets or rows and columns, and then diagrams are things like process models or context diagrams. Associations or interfaces between an actor and a use case captured in a use case diagram are shown through what? So this is a test of your understanding of how use case diagrams appear. And interfaces in this case is any exchange of information. So between the actor and the use case, an actor is the person, usually, and the use case captured in a use case diagram. So is it lines? Is it ovals? Is it arrows? Or is it stick figures? What do y'all think is the best answer?
A for Alabama lines.
Okay, Jose has voted for lines. Tell me why you don't like arrows, Jose.
I just know that it's lines. The stick figure is the actor.
You
The
just
ovals, it's
know.
the action.
Okay. The only reason I ask you that is typically most people do choose arrows, but lines is the correct answer. An association line indicates an actor has access to the functionality represented by the use case. Does everyone know what I mean by use case diagram? Have you ever seen one of these? Okay, so I'm going to give you a verbal description of it. A use case diagram is typically uh, rectangles down the center, and it indicates functions like can open a new account, can edit an account, things like that. It's the ability to do it. And then you have your actors as typically stick figures on the right and left. And the customer service agent has a line from the customer service agent to can open a new account, from the customer service agent down to can edit an account. So that's what it looks like. It's going to have stick figures on both sides. Each stick figure is going to have a title of their role, not their name, but their role underneath them. And then it shows all the things that those roles can do. And then you can take that as a business analyst and say, I'm going to need to create a grid to say, these people can all open a new account, but this person has limited access and they can do these things. This person has more access and they can do these things and maybe approve something. And then this person is a super user. So you take this beginning and you can move it into your requirements so that you can turn it into something that the tester can not just say they have access to it, but what they can do with that particular function. Very good. Let's move on. There we go. Oh, I jumped one. Okay. Carla and her team have identified and defined the potential value for three design options. What is their next logical step? So they've identified and defined the potential value for three design options. Tell me which tasks they have completed or that they're in the middle of. What's the name of this task?
Uh, define design options.
Okay, very good. So their next logical step after the potential value is going to be assess potential vendors, analyze each option's potential value, and ultimately recommend a solution, determine whether to make or buy, or model the design options so they're readily understood by the architect and the development team. Which one should we eliminate?
I would say B,
Why are we eliminating B, Gabriella?
because they have already um, identified the potential value of the three design options, and now they have to make the decision which one to choose.
Okay, so you're saying this is the best answer. Is that correct?
Yes, yes,
Okay. All right. I've got one vote for B. Jose
Yes,
Amarachi, what do you
B as
think?
well. B for Baltimore as well.
Okay, let's test B. And you are correct. In fact, if you go to 761, so this is your last task in the knowledge area, and go into the purpose, that's exactly what it says. Good job. Jewel wants to model features of an enterprise or a solution. What requirement model category would he use? So he wants to model features. The requirements model category would be, is that called capability, rationale, people and roles, or activity flow? Which one do you think is the wrong answer? Let's eliminate one.
Maybe the correct one is capability.
Okay. So we can
The,
eliminate people in roles because this is
yes,
not what this is asking for.
yes,
Okay, I've got one vote for A. Amarachi,
Yes,
Jose, what do y'all think?
capability as well.
Okay, okay.
Capability.
Amarachi, all right. Capability models focus on features and functions of an enterprise or a solution. Good job, guys. Which of the following describe common non-functional requirements categories? So this is non-functional requirements categories. They all have reliability. And then we've got readability, availability, or compatibility. Which one do we like most?
I would like the traceability most. Number B.
Okay, you like this answer the most? Reliability, availability, scalability, and traceability?
Yes, because traceability is also a big issue for non-functional requirements.
Okay, I've got one vote for B.
No, no,
Amarachi, Jose? Oh, go ahead, Gabrielle.
Ye- Yes, I would also go with that option because of the traceability, the horizontal and vertical traceability.
Okay, and Amarachi, what do you think?
Yeah, this traceability is what makes it stand out for me. True. So yeah.
Very good. So you all had the same logic. And I agree, traceability is a very important thing, but it's not a non-functional requirements category.
Localization.
So this is pulling out of the techniques chapter. So open your Babok up to the 30th option. I'm sorry, the 30th element in chapter 10 and look at point 3. And you're going to see 15, yes, 15 categories that you need to be aware of there.
but what's about the localization?
Yeah, that's my doubt as well.
Localization means where. It's not, it means where is it located? It's not the best word that they could have used, but it's what they used. Okay, let's
Hmm.
move on. I do encourage you to work through the techniques with those worksheets that I provided you. Which of the following statements is not true? So 3 of these are true, 1 of these is not. The main difference between requirements and designs is in how they are used and by whom. When focus on the specifying and modeling activity is on understanding the need, the output is referred to as the designs. And when the focus is on specifying and modeling activities on the solution, the outputs are referred to as the requirements. One person's designs may be another person's requirements. Requirements and designs may be either high level or very detailed based upon what is appropriate to those consuming the information. So 3 of these are true and 1 of these is not. Let's start at the top. Is this one true?
Yes.
Okay. And is this one true?
No, it's the way around.
It's backwards, isn't it?
Yeah.
Gabriella, Amarachi, can either one of y'all tell me how it's backwards?
I think it's B because it's the longest answer.
Well, it is the longest answer, but why is it wrong? Why is it not true?
It's backwards. It's actually the requirements that are used to understand the need and the designs
Hmm.
when modeling a solution.
Right. So need should be requirements and design. Whenever you get solution, we're talking design. And so it's got these backwards. If you have challenges with this, I dropped something in our shared folder in Slack that explains the difference between requirements and designs, and it goes into this. It's 3 pages. I wish somebody had given this to me before I took my test, but it makes it much more clear as to the difference between requirements and designs. Genevieve and her team of business analysts are in a process of ensuring that all requirements align to the business need and that the business satisfies the requirements. I'm sorry, that the design satisfies the requirements. They find it difficult to validate the design against the requirements. What would be the problem? So the BABOK talks about this, that if you do find it difficult to validate these, this is typically the problem. So this would be a result of scope creep. The requirement might be missing or incorrectly specified, or the design may not be right. The business analyst did not invite all the downstream stakeholders who would understand the design better, or the elicitation results must have been gathered by a different business analyst. So let's talk about which one of these we can eliminate.
Eliminate D for Denmark.
This is never a good sign, is it? As business analysts, it's our job to do it so well that if another business analyst picks it up, they've got all the information that they need. Thank you, Jose. So what do we think is the correct answer?
D for Canada.
I've got one vote for Canada.
And between B for Baltimore and C for Canada, but I'll go with C.
Okay, I've got one vote for C. Gabriella and Amarachi.
I think I would go with B.
You like B better? Tell me why.
So if the design, like to validate the design, like there's a challenge or like it doesn't match, then it's either the design is wrong or maybe the requirements collected were not correctly, like what was given out as the requirement was either not correct or the design is not correct. So it's either a problem with the requirement or a problem with the design.
Okay, all right. So Gabrielle, you're a tiebreaker. Do you like B or C or A best?
Hmm. Um, maybe the B.
Okay, let's test B. You guys reached the correct decision together. If a design cannot be validated to support a requirement, which basically means we built this and it doesn't meet this thing, There might be missing or misunderstood requirement, or the design must change. Do y'all know the term gold plating? Gold, like the metal plating?
No.
Okay. So gold plating is the idea that we're going to make it just a little bit better than we have to. Usually, I've seen it that developers are like, hey, while we're in there, let's give them this thing that they didn't ask for, but I know they're going to need. Or, um, we're gonna add an extra page to the website that's going to give them the ability to do surveys. Or they just spontaneously, out of the goodness of their heart, give us more than we need. That's called gold plating, and that's typically what we're seeing in this situation. Which of the following is not an input to the defined requirements architecture task? So we know what our task is. We've got a finite number of inputs. And so three of these are, one of these is not. Do you need solution scope, define design options, requirements any state, or and information management approach? Let's start at the top. Is this one of the inputs? Is this something that we need when
Yes.
we go to define requirements architecture? Jose says
Yes.
yes. Okay. How about define design options?
No, that's one I would say as not an input.
Okay. Let's check the
So,
rest of them just to be sure, as though we're on a test. You do need requirements any state. Is that correct?
yes.
And information management approach?
Yes.
Okay. So we've come down to B is the one that is not an input. Amarachi and Gabrielle, do you agree?
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Thank you, Gabrielle. Amarachi, what do you think?
So I think I'm just going to stay on the side and see. I'm not so sure about this one.
Okay. Let's test B and we'll all learn together, okay? So this is a task that uses requirements architecture as an input. It does not need define design options. Uh, Amarachi, I'd encourage you to just study the inputs to this task.
Okay.
You just created stakeholder and solution requirements. What task did you just finish? So at what point in this chapter have we created the stakeholder and solution requirements? Is that prioritize requirements, specify model requirements, structure requirements, or verify requirements? Which one of these is not one of the tasks in this chapter, guys?
Requirements. I know that specify and verify are
Mm-hmm.
structure requirements and prioritize. I think we prioritize on the previous,
Okay.
but structure requirements, I didn't see that specific term.
It's not there. Okay, so if we created our stakeholder and solution requirements, which task is it we have done?
It's,
In this case, the word created is another way for write it down.
I have to be honest, I'm confused with this question.
And with which task in this chapter do you write down your requirements?
Specify a model.
It is specify and model requirements. Creating requirements is another way of saying specify and model.
Okay.
Good job. So this is the point in the project that we take all of our notes and we turn it into something that can be reviewed. Which of the following output describes the requirements and interrelationships among them, as well as any contextual information that is recorded? So it's the output. Is this our information management approach, requirements architecture, information architecture, or requirements traced? Which one can we eliminate?
Eliminate requirements trace.
Okay.
That will be much more like an input rather than a task.
And what
And
do we
it's
think
not
is the correct answer?
the requirements architecture. Context interrelationship between them.
I want to remind you, Jose, that many of the inputs are outputs of previous tasks. I've got one vote for B.
Okay, I have to change to requirements traced.
Okay. I've got one vote for D.
But the requirements traced. It's the traced word that's throwing me out.
Okay. So we know our information management approach is something that we established way up in chapter 3, right?
Yeah.
So we know that that's not the right answer. And this, any contextual information that is recorded makes me think it might not be requirements traced. I don't know. Let's find out. I'm going to choose B and we're going to test it.
I'll choose B.
Good job. So this question describes the output of the defined requirements architecture task, which is requirements architecture, and it includes the requirements and the interrelationships among them. Interrelationships in this case are going to be, for instance, you've got to build the menu before you can populate the menu. You got to build the web page before you can build the menu, right? You got dependencies, you got relationships between those. And then any contextual information that's recorded. For instance, in the menu, we want to have these pages listed. So that's going to be contextual information. So if you had challenges with that, go check out the fourth task and section 8 of that. Okay. Elicitation results contain information of different types. Therefore, as part of specifying requirements, they can be categorized into one of the following categories. Which one is not of the Babok category, is not one of the Babok categories? So, requirements categories, are there transition requirements, stakeholder requirements, solution requirements, or technical requirements? Let's just start at the top. Do we have transition requirements?
Yes. Transition
Can
stakeholder
you?
solution. Yeah.
So transition requirements come between current state and future state. It's what we have to do to move from current state to future state. And then at the point that they are accomplished, they're no longer an active requirement. Correct? Do we have stakeholder requirements?
Yes, we do. What they need
Okay.
Yes.
to satisfy
Do we
an
have
issue.
solution requirements?
Yes, what we need to present to satisfy the need and fulfill the actual requirement.
That's exactly right. So then do we have technical requirements?
No.
Okay. Technical requirements are not one of the categories. So it's transition. We start with our stakeholder requirements. We get our transition requirements. Then we get our solution requirements. Transition requirements, let me give you an example of a transition requirement. Let's say we're moving from a small warehouse to a larger warehouse. We want to move all of the inventory from the small warehouse into the larger warehouse. We need to rent a truck. That's one of our transition requirements. We have to have a truck to move these things. Once we get them moved, we don't need the truck anymore. That transition requirement is no longer a need. So we can get rid of the truck. Stakeholder requirements is what does the stakeholder say is the problem? And then the solution requirements is how are we going to meet the problem? How are we going to resolve the problem? Any questions on those?
No. I just get a little bit confused with the technical requirements because I automatically associate them with the non-functional.
Yes, yes, I fully understand what you're saying. But they are two totally different animals.
Yeah, yeah,
They're not the same at all.
yeah.
It's easy to say, well, we need these things, but that's not the right name. Okay, let's move on to question 13. Data about data can best be described as what? So this is your what it means, and is the word metadata, data model, attributes, or entities? Which one can we eliminate?
Eliminate entities.
Okay. And which one do y'all think is the correct answer?
The metadata.
Say it again, Jose.
The A for Alabama, metadata.
Metadata. Gabriella, Amarachi, what do you
Yes.
think?
A.
A. Metadata. Whoop, I didn't hit the right button there. There we are. Metadata describes what the entities represent, when and why they were created or changed, how they should be used, how often they're used, when and by whom. In essence, metadata is the information or the data about data. You are reviewing the requirements with your sponsor and customer. While examining the requirements, they note some minor quality problems that you need to fix. What task have you just completed? So remember the task that ends with a Y because it's quality. Is it validate requirements, perform quality control, verify requirements, or perform quality assurance? So which one can we eliminate, which is not a task in the BABOK?
B for Baltimore and D for Denmark.
Right. Those two are not tasks in the BABOK or in this chapter. So we have validate or verify. Which one do you think is the correct answer?
The verify.
Because it ends with a Y, we know that this is talking about quality, and we're working on quality here. Verify ensures requirements and design specification meet the quality standards. Thank you, Jose. Which of the following is not true about a class and a data model? So you need to understand what a data model structure looks like and that there are classes in your data model. So 3 of these are true about classes and 1 of these are not. A class has a relationship with other classes. A class contains attributes. A class contains operations that describe what can be done in that class, with that class, or a class defines an entity's allowable values. Let's start at the top. Does a class have relationships with other classes in a data model?
Yes, the one-to-one, one-to-many.
Exactly. And that's what the different boxes are. They're each classes, right? A class contains attributes. Is that true?
Yes, each specific, another word for attribute.
It does. It does contain attributes. A class contains operations that describe what can be done in that class. Is that true?
Uh, Class diagram UML, yes, it's what we have on the below a line. It's sometimes divided
Below
in
the line. That was the phrase I was waiting for. You're right. And so does a class define the entity's allowable values?
yeah, that's what I'm confused. Uh, it is an entity's values, but I don't think the word allowable is being used here correctly. I know that
Okay.
the correct answer for the not in this one is D for Denmark, but I'm just not understanding what they mean.
Okay, I'll go over that. Let's get the other folks' answers and then we'll go deeper into it. Gabriella Amarachi, what do you think?
It's about the Babok. I don't know if there, maybe the operations in the C is not wrong, is not correct, because the operations are methods in the data
Okay.
classes.
Okay. And Amarachi, what is your opinion? Let's test this answer. And you are correct. This is a definition of an attribute, but it's not in a class diagram. Let's go over to Slack real quick.
Okay, definition
And I'm
of
going to show
attributes.
you. I'm going to show you the document that I created for you here. So in your international group, in your file repository, we're going to go to group 6. And we're going to look at a class diagram. I think I've got one in here. Well, here it is. So here's an example. I think this is what we're talking about. Data model. I tell you what, I'll double check this because I'm not seeing the whole picture on this slide. And and I want you to see the whole thing. So I will drop this in Slack for you later. Okay. Siobhan has assembled a team to analyze the potential value of design options and recommend a solution. So we know we are in the very last task to recommend a solution. What must he have obtained first in order to accomplish this task? So for this task, we want to know what the inputs are. Is it solution options prototype, design options, solution options, potential value, design options, or potential value and change strategy? What are the inputs into this task, folks?
The potential value and design options.
Okay, I've got one vote for C for California. Amarachi, are you still with us? Gabriella, what do you think? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and test C. And you are correct, Jose. Congratulations. Moving on. How is the solution core concept of the business analysis core concept model applied in the requirements analysis and design definition area? So in this knowledge area, the solution core concept, is it the performance of a solution is examined and assessed to see if it is delivering the potential value? The circumstances that influence and provide an understanding to the change are considered when determining solution performance measures. Potential value of the solution options are analyzed and quantified. Potential solution options are defined, and the one that is most likely to address the need and has the most value is recommended. Which one can we eliminate?
Circumstances. That's the context.
Right. This one is talking about change, right? Not solution. Or do you think this is the correct answer? I'm sorry, Jose. Which one?
That's B for Baltimore. I would associate it more with context rather than the solution in the
Okay.
concept.
So what do we think is the correct answer?
The D for Denmark.
Okay. Gabriella, Amarachi, what do y'all think? I think we may have lost them. Let's go ahead and check it. And you're correct, Jose. Good job. This answer represents the solution core concept.
Can we see why is not A for Alabama?
Sure. This is done in the solution evaluation knowledge area. So it is done, but just not in this particular knowledge area. We're in RAD, and that's solution evaluation. Okay. Okay. Maria is required to show how elements work in harmony with one another to support the business requirements and to structure the elements in various ways to align to the viewpoints of different stakeholders. What technique would be useful? So she is in the task that's talking about viewpoints, views and viewpoints. Which task is that? It also is the tasks that show how the elements work together to support the business requirements.
Okay, business requirements validate.
Okay. And so the techniques for that particular task. Let's see, we've got workshops in 3 of the 4 of them. Is workshops one of them? I'm sorry, they're in all 4. It's just not in the same order. Okay, so workshops is in all 4. Um, is scope modeling in there?
I don't know. These organization functions, what's it?
I would exclude B because of interface analysis.
Okay, because you're saying this is not one of the techniques, so we can exclude it?
Yes,
Very good. Good logic. Okay, this also has interface analysis, so that means we can exclude both of them. So which one do you like most for the techniques for this particular task? Is it A or C?
A because of the SWOT analysis.
So SWOT analysis is one of the techniques in this task?
Could be maybe one of us could have a look if the SWOT analysis is in.
Sure. So SWOT analysis is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
Because for me, it's a SWOT analysis. It can help to align the viewpoints of different stakeholders.
That makes me think it's probably not going to have SWOT analysis in the techniques list.
Mm-hmm.
So let's test D and see what we get. These are all defined requirements architecture techniques. So it workshops, scope modeling, interviews, organizational modeling, functional decomp, and data modeling. In many companies, I've heard functional decomp is WBS or work breakdown structure. So I want you to know that if you hear that, it's still talk about functional decomposition. Okay, 19. Which of the following is not an improvement opportunity when defining design options? Not an improvement opportunity means 3 of these are and 1 is not. Do we eliminate redundancy when defining design options? Is that something that would be an improvement opportunity?
Yes.
Okay. How about increased consistency of behavior?
That's the one I will choose as not an improvement opportunity. The other one seems much more likely.
Okay. So you vote that eliminate redundancy, improve access to stakeholders, and improve access to information are your improvement opportunities.
Yes, consistency
Okay.
of behavior.
I would say the C is the wrong one.
Tell me why you like C better, Gabriella.
Because increase consistency of behavior, that's for me a good sign for a good design. And
Okay.
improve access to stakeholders. So I would improve the access to the stakeholders, but not of the information or the solution.
Right. Okay.
Okay, okay,
Let's
okay.
test C.
Okay. Yeah.
You talked him into it, Gabriella. Good job. So let's talk about the differences between these, what these really are. Eliminate redundancy. So three people don't have to get approval for the same thing. If one person gets it, that's enough. Or three people don't have to verify that the zip code or the address is correct for every single customer. If one person does it, it's enough. Increased consistency of behavior. An example of that is you've got four groups in the same department and they each have their own processes, but they're accomplishing the same goal. If you have them all doing the same process, that means that people can move between the groups without having to learn a new process and that everyone is measured the same way. Measuring someone who does it much, that has to follow a much um, harder process at the same as somebody who has to follow a much easier process isn't fair. And they can't do the work the same way. They can't get the same results. They can't get the same KPIs. Improving access to information. If you have to go through 5 screens to get a piece of information that you need 20 times a day, if you can just have to go through 1 screen or 2 screens, you're improving access to information. But improving access to stakeholders is not a thing that we are typically trying to do um, in as BAs. Okay, let's go to question 20. XYZ is a new organization that uses Agile methodology. The organization is looking for the best solution for a project team collaboration and artifact storage. So this is their goal right here. Marcus has been hired as a business analyst and is tasked with carrying out an analysis between using Confluent site versus a SharePoint site. So this is like just an information repository opportunities. Which of the following is best suited for his needs? So he's going to need to compare what he needs to what Confluence can give him and what SharePoint can give him. Would he use a model, a state diagram, notation, or a matrix? Which one can we eliminate?
Eliminate notations.
Okay. And why are we eliminating that one, Jose?
Notations are can I define notations? Notations are like standards. I associate notations with writing, how we define things.
Yes. Okay, so what do we think is the correct answer?
I don't,
Matrix.
I don't understand the question.
The question is, he's got to do a comparison between what the business needs
Yes.
and two possible solutions.
Which of the following is best suited to his needs? So he
Yes.
wants to compare the Confluence versus the SharePoint. And
He wants to compare their abilities, not their
yes,
layout. He wants to compare their abilities.
yes, and the new organization uses agile methods and is
That doesn't,
looking for the
that's just
best
extra
solution.
information.
Genau.
Yes.
And the solution for project team collaboration and artifact storage. But how does a matrix suit? He makes a comparison. So this is, but yes, okay, we take matrix.
Okay, let's test it. So a matrix can be used to compare features of both Confluence and SharePoint sites to determine which site will best meet the project team collaboration and storage needs of the organization. A matrix is literally rows and columns, a spreadsheet, a table, something that you can say they need this, this one is able to do it, this one is not able to do it. And then you can
Yes,
see which one is able to meet the need.
Can we see the
So
notations? I want to understand better the
modeling notations will help with precisely specifying requirements as appropriate for the audience, but notations won't help you do the comparison.
modeling notations. Okay.
Thank you for thoughtfully walking through that. I appreciate your input. The lead business analyst has engaged you to outline the design possibilities that would satisfy a set of requirements in the project. Which set of activities is the lead business analyst involved in? So outline the design possibilities that would satisfy the set of requirements. Which task is that?
Design options. Define design options.
Okay.
Design
So
possibilities.
if it's define design options, which of these has the elements of define design options in it? Which one can we eliminate first?
Eliminate D for Denmark. That's the strategy analysis uh, work
Yep,
group
that's
area.
yes, exactly. So what is the correct answer for this one?
A for Alabama.
Bam.
could also
Gabriella,
be
what do you
the
think?
could also be the C because of determining expected benefits.
That was
Okay.
mentioned.
So you like this one. How about this?
Yes,
Determining expected costs.
That's for the potential value task.
Okay, so let's test A. So these are the elements in defined design options, which is what the business analyst is engaged in. In defined design options, the elements are defining solution approaches, identifying improvement opportunities, requirements allocation, and describing the design options. Sarah is a BA working on enhancements to the organization's human resource system. She would like to model an employee's life cycle from the time they are a recruit until they are no longer with the company, along with the triggers that change their status. Which of the following diagrams would best suit her objective? So is the diagram that she needs to use a process diagram, use case diagram, state diagram, or a sequence diagram? Which one can we eliminate?
Eliminate the use case.
Okay. And which one do you think is the correct answer, Jose?
The state diagram.
Okay. Gabrielle, what do you think?
Seems to me also process oriented from start to beginning, the process of the I
I
Okay.
was also
Let's
I was
test
also
the state diagram and I'll
the
come back and
model,
talk about
the
it more.
life cycle.
So you're right, Gabrielle, that is talking about a process. It's model the life cycle from the time they're a recruit until they're no longer with the company. But here's the key, what triggers the change in their status? So they move from
Ah,
a applicant to an interviewee to a round one, round two, whatever. Then a new employee, accepted job offer, new employee onboarded, employee, um, and then at some point they may also be on a leave, they may be terminated, they may be retired. So those are states. And so what you need to do is determine what changes them from the last state to the next state. The thing that turns them from a candidate to an employee is they accepted the job offer. So that's the trigger. And so they are in the state of employee not started yet or something like that. So those are state diagrams. Does that make sense? Gabriella, in your new job, you're going to have people that are they're candidates for your program that have not applied. They're candidates that have applied but not yet been accepted. They're candidates that have been accepted but they haven't been fully enrolled. They're going to go through stages, and you're going to have to
yes,
define what changes them from one stage to the next stage. And those are called states. Does that make sense?
yes, I have, yes, this makes sense. I have to go through the different types of diagrams and how they can help me.
Yes, ma'am. I think it's a really good thing to do.
Mm.
Turning things into pictures makes it a whole lot more clear, especially when you're talking to people that their first languages are not the same. That way, you're not relying on languages as much as you're relying on pictures, and people understand pictures much more easily and
Yes,
quicker. They don't have to read a paragraph, right? Requirements that don't meet quality standards are likely to have been evaluated at which task. At which task do you determine if it does or does not meet a quality standard? Is that validate, verify and validate, value, or verify? What do y'all think the right answer is?
The verify. Verify for quality, validate for business.
You are correct. Verifying requirements helps ensure requirements meet the necessary standard of quality to allow them to be used effectively to guide further work. Verify for quality. The why is the thing that keeps people remembering it. Rebecca is structuring the requirements to ensure all requirements form a single whole that supports overall business objectives and produce meaningful outcome for the stakeholders. Which of the following would not be a consideration for Rebecca? So she is doing this thing right here. Which task is that?
Validate. Validate. Yeah, validate.
Uh, Ver I'm sorry, which one?
The task is validate, I believe,
Okay.
and
So
the answer.
so if she's validating, well, wait a minute. She's structuring the requirements.
No, after validation, a single whole, the architecture.
Okay. So in that case, would template architectures be a consideration?
Templates architecture. Yes,
Let's just come back to that one as a maybe. Requirements allocation. Is this something she was going to be considering?
how are you gonna
Yes.
allocate the requirements?
Okay.
No, I would say
Is she
no.
going to be looking at completeness?
Yes, sorry, and to make sure that all requirements forms a whole.
Okay. And how about requirements, viewpoints, and views?
Yes, to understand each different stakeholder perspectives and what each one needs
And
to accomplish.
yes. Okay. So let's test A. Okay. So in defined requirements architecture, template architectures are, it's like, um, here are some suggestions for you. For the executives, you're going to provide it in this format. For the business people, you provide it in this format. For QA and for development, you provide it in this detailed format. Requirements allocation is in the defined design options. That's why this one is the best answer. So template architectures, completeness, and requirements, viewpoints, and views are what you need for this particular task. Make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. One more and we will wrap up for the day. A senior BA was providing advice to new business analysts and recommending using a matrix for their requirements modeling format. What is the purpose of this type of format? Is it to clearly describe the requirements in an active voice, to convey the set of requirements that have complex but uniform structure that can be broken down, to create a visual representation of a set of requirements, or to provide an easy way for the business analyst to model the requirements? So let's eliminate one. In a matrix,
Eliminate A for Alabama.
okay. What is the technique that this is talking about?
In an active voice, a user story.
A user story. Very good. Thank you, Jose. Is there another one we can eliminate?
B for Baltimore. I would say that's more likely to be a functional decomposition.
Okay, we can eliminate both of those. What do you think of C?
Either second
Yes.
chance.
See, it seems the correct one because we had the matrix format uh, to have the to compare the requirements.
Okay. This word visual bothers me for matrix. Typically, I think of
Yes.
visual representation as a picture, not a rows and columns. But we can test it. Jose, what do you think?
Yeah, that's the thing with the visual answer. To me, it's more like an image, rich map, um, a mind map, something like that. But let me see wait for the business model. Yeah, C for Canada.
Okay, let's test C. Okay, so it is telling us this is the best answer. And the reason why is because it's a uniform structure. In rows and columns, you have each thing being compared against the same. For instance, it can hold over 60,000 records. It can, it's yes or no. It can return results within zero point 0.3 seconds, yes or no. We have a warranty period of at least 3 years. It's yes or no. Or you could say, how long is the warranty period? This one is 3 years, this one is 5 years. But that way you have a way of getting complex information, multiple paragraphs, maybe out of contracts or whatever, and you do a uniform structure to do a comparison that way. Okay, let's submit this exam. And our results today, we've got a 92%. So for chapter 7, I see that we still have some work to do, but I think you're in a really good place. What do you think about us moving on to chapter 8 and getting chapter 8 under our belt? And then we'll come back and add chapter 7 and 8 and do a quiz on that one after we get 8 under our belt, maybe 2 weeks. Does that work?
Yes. Uh, for
Okay.
me specifically, I would also like to go through again with chapter 6.
Oh, we're gonna add chapter 6 back in. So
Okay,
I
okay,
want to get we're gonna move from here. Next week we'll do chapter 8 and maybe do chapter 8 2 weeks depending on our results. And then we'll add chapter 7 back in, then we'll add chapter 6 back in. So we'll be doing 6, 7, and 8 at that point.
okay, okay.
Okay.
What was chapter 6?
Chapter 6
Strategy,
is solution evaluation. No, not solution evaluation. I just
strategy
blanked on it. Chapter 6 is
uh,
strategy analysis.
analysis.
Okay.
Analyze
This
current state,
one.
define future state, assess risk, and define change strategy.
Mhm.
Okay, so next week, study for chapter 8. And I want to just review chapter 8 with you just very briefly. Chapter 8 is very, very similar to chapter 6. You're doing some of the same things, but in chapter 8, you have to have at least a prototype of your solution ready to test. Something has to be ready to test. So that can be a prototype, the first iteration has been deployed, the solution's been in place for 30 years. Some part of your solution has to be accessible to do some kind of testing on. And that's the only time chapter 8 happens. Chapter 8 is very similar to chapter 6 You're doing some of the same things, but in chapter 8, you have a solution. In chapter 6, you're trying to determine what the solution is going to be. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay,
fine.
very good. Very, very good. I look forward to
Is
seeing
it?
y'all here next week. I will send out a good class diagram so you can see that. I've got it on my other computer, so I just need to send it out on Monday. I'll put it in the Slack repository, okay?
That,
Yes,
that,
I uh, I will do some research for the solution requirement of the security software, and there are also some requirements we find in the internet, so I can do a template for security software.
You need to identify what is your minimum requirements for your project. And that way, whenever you talk to John, you can say, we're looking for something that meets or exceeds these things.
Yes, and I can do it in the Slack so that the colleagues can have a look on it. Or maybe is it better to do it on another
I think that would be
forum?
fantastic. Start a thread in Slack and say, this is what I'm working on for work. Don't put in anything that you can't share. Be sure that it's only things you can share. And that way they have a insight as to what you're working on, and maybe it'll help them too.
Fun. Good.
Excellent. Thank you, Gabrielle. That's very kind of you. Okay, so I'm going to introduce Gabrielle to John Weisner. John runs a podcast for business analysts. And so if he doesn't have it for his own organization, he might know somebody who has some suggestions, not telling you what to do at all, and not acting as a paid consultant to you. Um, Let me see. I will
So
introduce you to John
we
on LinkedIn.
can we can use the challenge for the community in the Tampa Bay.
It's possible. Let me see what you come up with, and then we'll see how to best present it and ask people their
Yes.
opinions. One reason I think that John Weisner is going to be a better solution for you, though, Gabrielle, is he's in London. So he's got the super high security stuff that the UK is running right now. The
Ah,
privacy, those rules that seem to change every week, but they have to do things that are much more strict and much more consistent than we do here in the middle of the United States. So, because you're probably
okay.
not working only in Germany, you're probably working with UK organizations. I think that his advice is going to be better for you, but we'll find
And
out.
I think also he's more in near to the European uh, requirements of
Yes,
information
that's exactly what I
security.
mean. Yes, the information security and the privacy. I keep one called GDPR, but I don't think that's the right letters.
Fun.
Okay, I'll make those introductions in just a few minutes and let him know that you will be responding to him whenever you get your minimum requirements determined. Okay?
Yes, fun. Thank you.
Perfect. My pleasure. My pleasure. Okay, guys, I will see you next week. We'll be working on chapter 8. Y'all have a good day. Goodbye.
Goodbye.